Y'all ain't heard nothing like this before. Beat him in the head with this trilogy. Who dropped this for a certain demographic? Turn it up, blast it. This is gonna be a classic. Facts. Not your run of the mill.
Hey, paisans and pomadas, welcome back to the very first new episode of Gangsters and Cigars, live here from Smoke Ring 72 in beautiful Merritt Island, Florida. I am your host, Bobby Bacala.
And your co-host, Shirtless Mike.
Shirtless Mike in the house tonight, slinging ash all day long as he does. Great to be back on air. Great to see our fans again. Before we get started, as always, a huge shout out to one of my dearest friends, Alfie. Hooked me up, the new Gorin brother vintage fedora. Told him I was going to wear it on air tonight. Speaking of fedoras and hats, you all know I make custom lids. You could pick up one of my custom lids right here at Smoke Ring 72, along with the Hitman Series cigars. Shameless plug, I apologize. So like we promised, we were on a short hiatus. And I said to Mike that we wanted to heat things up a little bit, get a little bit more serious, get back to what we were all about. Tonight's episode might have you in tears. It's heart-wrenching. My best friend, who was a troop commander in Connecticut State Police, was also on-scene command at one of the worst mass shootings in the United States at Sandy Hook with those poor souls. He's going to share some stories, some things he's not going to get into. If Cliff feels uncomfortable, naturally we're going to stop. You don't want to miss this episode. It's definitely going to make you think twice about this world, and as fucked up as it is, and as fucked up people is out here. And you know I'm a straight shooter. You know I tell you all the time how things are. I'm really honored and pleased, not only that he's my best friend, I'm also honored and pleased that he's here to share this story with you, to share this experience with you, to move you, to hopefully have you think about anything. It'll definitely have you change your mind about friends, family, the way you go about your daily lives. But we couldn't have anybody in the house with more knowledge than Cliff at that event. We're going to get back to hitting on the organized crime, get back into some Bobby Bacala stories and involvement in organized crime, and get into more homicide. You guys like homicide. We're going to talk about some more serial killer cases that I worked and so on and so forth. Without further ado, my cigar guru, Shirtless Mike, we're going to go over a new cigar tonight that we haven't smoked together on air. And remember, guys, if you want us to smoke something, to critique a new cigar, hit us up. Tell us what you want us to smoke. If there's a content you want us to speak about, let us know. We'll go get a guest on here. If I can't answer your questions, or if Mike can't answer your questions, we're going to try to get some more cigar people in the industry on the show as well. Trying to throw things up at you guys. I know we've had some requests. Hey, get some more cigar people on. We're going to do that as well. Without further ado, Shirtless Mike, what we smoking?
Yeah, so tonight my band came off, so Bobby can hold up the band. This is the Room 101 Daruma, and it's basically a new rendition of a cigar that came out a number of years ago from Room 101. It was a different blend. Now this is a Nicaraguan Puro, all Nicaraguan cigar, beautiful packaging and everything. It's a medium to full body cigar, more of a medium to me because I smoke so much, but I don't know how it feels to you. Is it solid medium?
Nice. It's definitely a solid medium. To me, a little on the heavy side, but absolutely a solid medium with a great taste. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so awesome cigar. I've smoked a few of these since we've brought them into the shop, and it's awesome. I got a lot of earthiness in the background when I first started smoking it. I had different spice notes. I actually reviewed this cigar earlier today, so I'm trying to think of what I got earlier, but lots of spice notes.
Leather.
A little bit of leather in the background.
A little dirt. That earth dirt taste.
Yeah, that's the earthiness that I was referring to. So kind of like dirt. But I mean, it's an awesome cigar. It's in the $13.52 range, and I really enjoyed this cigar.
Well, it has flavor to it. I mean, it's
Lots
not,
of flavor.
Yeah. So for like a medium cigar, it has light tones to it. So you can smoke it. You have your heavy tones if you like your heavy cigars, but it absolutely has some light tones. I'm not getting any spice. You know, everybody has a different palate, but I'm absolutely getting that leather taste, that woodsy, maybe woodsy notes, little woodsy notes to it. Definitely a nice cigar. I definitely think I would dig this with a nice glass of bourbon.
Yeah.
That type of cigar that you want to, instead, I'm a big vino guy, but I'm thinking a nice glass of bourbon.
Yeah, I got some Knob Creek at the house, so
There you go. There you go. Well, you know, the old man has all the bourbon in the world at his bar, but so what else is new, man? What have you been up to? I know Vegas is when? This week?
yeah, PCA is this week, so Lou will be going there, and I actually, well, I'll say this. So I'm doing a campaign. So I posted a picture of Lou. This is between us.
All right.
So that's I did not. I made it so he couldn't see it, and I'm like, if you see this guy at PCA, ask him where the fuck Shirtless Mike is, and I'm gonna see how many people will go up to him
And ask him where
and
you're
ask him, so that maybe I'll be able to go next year, regardless, because
Yep.
some stuff happened this year where I have to stay here on the home front. I was going to go with one of my sponsors for my show, but it just didn't work out. So I'm going to hold shit down here. Lou's going to go there, represent the shop over there. So hopefully people start just walking up to him. I'm not telling them about it. I'm just going to be like,
just do it. Shit.
So hopefully no one snitches on me. But
Next year we can always take the show there. Maybe do a podcast from Vegas. My type of people in Vegas, so that'd be interesting. Go to the Mob Museum. That'd be
plus I like
cool.
to gamble. I'm not a degenerate gambler. At least I think I'm not. We'll see what happens.
I'm a gambler. It's always been what women have always lost. So
Hey, you
got it. Yeah, exactly.
But everything is good, man. Just enjoying life. My mental health is improving by the day. Just
good.
trying to,
You look
always
good. You sound good, brother.
just trying to always keep myself in a good frame of mind.
You've been popping out positive messages. I'm proud of you.
Exactly. I've learned something that I've been learning is I don't need to always, I don't need to always be out there on every scene or whatever. Like, of course, I'm already known and all that type of stuff. What I post on social media just needs to be, quality stuff. So I haven't been, as posting stuff just for the hell of it.
Good for you.
Just trying to, just enjoy time to myself when I have it.
Good.
And just enjoy life, trying to savor the moment with friends,
And that's the way
especially
life
us
should
doing
be,
this
man.
podcast, just savoring the moment.
I missed sitting next to you, even though I see you up here anyway. Sitting next to you is a different story. It's more fun. I get to break your balls more, which I enjoy. But you look good, healthy. You sound good, man. Proud of you. One more shout out. Let me give a shout out to Keith Corman with Bad Influence Customs, who keeps me and all my brothers and our bikes in top shape. Does the baddest audio systems on custom bikes and custom builds. Keith, love you, man. Thanks for the work on my bike. And as always, thanks for taking care of the brothers. All right, let's flip the switch a little. And like I promised you guys, it's going to be a little hard-hitting tonight. This is the first of our new episodes, and I couldn't think of a better person to have on than one of my closest friends, dearest friends in the world. So without further ado, Cliff, come join us on the couch, brother. Cliff, you met Mike?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
And again, I'd reach across and give you a kiss, but you're going to have to wait. I'm going to have Cliff introduce himself, tell you what his... Yeah, I'm going to move over so you get the screen a little bit more. There you go. Just lean back, relax.
Yeah.
I'll have Cliff introduce himself, what his rank was when he was in Connecticut. He's still in law enforcement as we speak. Won't get into that, but we're just going to get into what he did at Sandy. Cliff, go ahead and introduce yourself and your position you held at the time in Sandy Hook.
Thank you. First, I want to apologize to the audience. I'm not a cigar smoker, so I don't have a cigar. But they smell really good. But I'm not a cigar smoker. I appreciate them inviting me. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Mike, for letting me be here.
No problem.
Anytime.
My name is Cliff Labby. I've been in law enforcement. This is my civilian law enforcement, 37 years, not including my military time. I was with the Connecticut State Police for 22 years, and prior to that, was a local agency. So 27 years up north, and I've been down here in Florida with another agency. As Bob said, I was a troop commander, and what that means in Connecticut is we don't have sheriffs up there. It's either local police or state police that take care of everything. So any major incident like that was covered by the state police in Connecticut. So the day of that tragedy, December 14th, 2012, I was a troop commander at Troop C in Towland, which is on the other side of the state. And I was contacted by my command staff that there was a shooting in Newtown. The first call that we got on that is to say, hey, listen, there was a shooting there. This is what's going on. Prepare yourself for what's happening. I had no idea that the immense status it was or what was going on. And I had to wait, and we learned later that so many people had passed. Excuse me, I apologize. So many people had passed in that.
So what was your response time? By the time your call came in and you came on scene, was how long?
By the time I came on scene, it was the evening of the incident. They had enough personnel on scene. They needed commanders to take over as watch commanders in the evening. So when I arrived there, the detectives were still processing the scene. We had a command post there. We were trying to facilitate victims and their families to get people in from other states. We're assigning troopers to go to airports in New York, New Jersey, to pick up personnel, to family members, to bring them here. The media was relentless. I mean, we had media from all over the world there. So unfortunately, the time came that we had to put plywood over the windows so they couldn't videotape. And because we had so many victims, the 20 first grade students and the 6 educators that were killed, unfortunately, that day, we had to have a makeshift morgue outside. So my job there was to facilitate anything that needed to be done at that time. So arriving there at the time, the lead detective took me through a walkthrough of the scene, explained to me what was going on, so I could facilitate anything that was needed there as a commanding officer during that part of it. And I can tell you that that view of that scene resonates through my mind each and every day.
It's, as you know, Cliff, I worked homicide for years too. Never that many victims, been on scene on several, a couple of children, but I don't think that I would be able to grasp the initial walking in on that many children, as out here, and our fans, and I'm a father. Cliff is a father. It's different when you walk in a perspective as being a parent and seeing children than not being a parent and sort of having a little bit of a wedge between you and the scene, because the first thing that hits home, and Cliff, correct me if I'm wrong, is you start thinking about who's with my kids right now, are they safe? And I'm sure you still live with the ghosts.
Absolutely, Bob. And one of the things that I do, I'm very fortunate because at the agency I work now here in Florida, I'm the coordinator of our peer support team, which is I'm a big advocate of, because unfortunately in Connecticut, they did a good job with doing after action briefings and stuff with our personnel. But as time goes on, people forget. But that scarring that those personnel have doesn't go away. So we've had some of the people that were personal friends of mine. I know that they suffered for a long time. They're still suffering now because of that. I mean, Connecticut, I got to give them the credit. The state police did a great job. They assigned a trooper to every family, all the 26 families of victims. The detectives working the actual crime scene in the school. They had a 2-man team, so one detective was never by himself. They had briefings after that. But as time goes on, people forget. And they don't forget the incident. They just forget that we still need to have mental health. And those of us, Bobby, you've been in law enforcement a long, long time. Those of us in law enforcement, I have an analogy that we're like a nice smooth bowling ball when we start. And each and every incident that we go to, cumulative, takes a chip out of that. And so 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, you're a rough rock at that rough edges, and you're not the same person you were when you started, based on seeing all these things. The situation like Sandy Hook, unfortunately, a terrible situation. I hope no officers in the country have to ever go through that, to see that scene, to be there at that scene, to even process something like that is pretty terrible. So mental health part of that, the PTSD part of that is real. I want your audience to understand that the officers are suffering. We always talk about military PTSD and 22 a day suicides, but suicide rate for police officers is extremely high. It's like 15% of police officers have suicide rates. So we had 2 in an adjoining county to mine a year and a half ago with suicide. So it's a real thing. It's a real factor, and we all have to be cognizant of that. That these officers, these firemen, these first responders that are doing this type of work, it takes a toll on them. It really does. It takes a toll on them.
Absolutely. What was approximate time from the beginning of the event till the end of the event? How long did it take approximately?
After the after action report, and actually I was just, I wanted to give you a copy of that. I have that with me tonight so you can see it. It was about 6 minutes from start to finish from when and I'm not going to use the person's name because I'm not going to give them the notoriety, but from when the suspect entered the school to at the end of the incident itself, when officers were into the school and got down and found the suspect. He had killed himself in the second classroom number 10. He had killed himself in that classroom. It was about 6 minutes total time.
6 minutes, approximately how many rounds? I know can't go into everything.
156 rounds were fired, 154 from the 223, the Bushmaster rifle that he had, and 2 from a handgun. One was down the hallway and one was into himself when he shot himself in that classroom.
Wasn't his mother the principal there?
No, his mother was a student, a teacher's aide or a substitute teacher,
okay.
And she had been there. We unfortunately are only surmising this because the mother's dead and obviously the suspect's dead, but we believe he may have had an issue with that the mother might have been closer to the kids there. And again, I'm just surmising this.
No, I get it.
There's none of that. But he had shot and killed his mother prior to going. That mother was sleeping in the bed. He got up, got dressed. He got dressed in BDU type pants, a polo shirt, put a outside vest over it, not a ballistic vest, something that a hunter would wear, to carry items. Put a small hat on, like if you ever remember, your audience remembers Gilligan Island, type of hat. Put fingerless gloves on, put earplugs in his ear, and loaded himself up with hundreds of rounds of ammunition, both for the 223 and for the handguns, 2 handguns he had on him. And then he had rounds for a Sega shotgun that he had in the trunk of his car, which is a shotgun with a long extended magazine. So he had hundreds of rounds of ammunition on him when we found him. A lot of people don't know this, but there was no alcohol abuse. There was no drugs in the system, no abnormalities that we know of. There was allegations that he may have had Asperger's disease, and that was never actually proven. So we still don't know the motive of this person who did this heinous crime. Now, we do know some things about it. He researched mass shootings. He had a spreadsheet on his computer that over 500 mass shootings. He researched, videos of suicide, what type of weapon they use, how many victims. So he'd been researching this for a while, and he was very much of a gun advocate. Mom would facilitate that. He was not old enough to buy his own firearms. Mom would facilitate that. Mom was a single mother. Father lived away. The suspect lived with the mother, so was a very affluent area of Newtown that they lived in. So again, I tell your audience that they need to pay attention to what their kids are doing online and what they're doing and the things that they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. I've said this before on here, and I'm going to say it because you're here. You don't have to be so religious and have such a faith to understand that pure evil exists in this world. I've met and stared at pure evil. Cliff has met and stared at pure evil. And you have to say to yourself, and I'm not trying to be philosophical, and I'm not trying to say anything about religion if somebody out here does not believe, but you have to say to yourself, okay, all right, you want to throw mental illness in. I was abused as a child. He was abused as a child. This is what you always hear. I'm not saying I was abused. I'm just giving you for instance. So what can turn somebody into a killer of children or other human beings in that capacity and snap at a drop of a hat. It's to me, you jump in anytime, Cliff. To me, it's got to be something of an outside nature other than mental illness. I just believe that because some of the serial killings and stuff that I've been on and some of the murderers that I've interviewed, and you can look in their eyes and I swear to Christ, you can see the evil just by looking at them. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And if you look at some of the mass shootings that we've had in the United States, when we started really paying attention to mass shootings was after April 1999, April 20th, 99, when Columbine happened,
Absolutely.
right? Columbine was initially, people don't know, they wanted to be a bombing. They had bombs there.
Yep.
It didn't go off, so that it turned into be that shooting incident. Unfortunately, that happened is they had killed and injured so many students there of the school they were going to, and then killed themselves. But watching the video of that, because a lot of that was on video, if your audience didn't know, and also audio, because they had picked up one of the phones from one of the victims they had shot, and they kept the phone on, so the dispatcher was able to hear everything that was on.
Right.
So we were able to analyze all that stuff, and those two persons that did Columbine had this plan. They had planned this out all the time. I believe the shooter from Sandy Hook did this exact same thing. And then you had the Parkland shooting here that was here in Florida a few years back. Terrible situation.
Pulse nightclub shooting was insane.
There was another person that thought about this, that went there, had an issue, and they had planned this stuff out there already. So yes, Bob, I agree with you. There's something underlying that's going to this. And hopefully your audience doesn't say, oh, it's the guns, because it's not. Think about something. The law-abiding citizens that go by and get their firearms the proper way, they got them. These people that had these firearms here were illegally possessing them, except for the Pulse shooter. The Pulse shooter had his own pistol permit, and he was a security officer in the state of Florida. But the other ones, Parkland and stuff, they weren't able to have weapons. They obtained weapons by illegal matter. So if you think that if we get more stringent laws, it's going to change, it's not going to change. Look at Chicago. Chicago's probably the worst city in the world that are for people dying, and most of the shootings are done with people that aren't supposed to have firearms in the first place. So
yeah, no matter what, people are going to get guns.
Absolutely. And if you look at some of the mass killings in the UK, they're done with blades. If somebody has a mindset that they're going to go out and cause havoc and murder, it doesn't matter if you have a firearm, it doesn't matter if you have a knife or a bat. If they're going to carry it out, they're going to carry it out.
absolutely.
Ted Bundy used a baseball bat. Baseball bat didn't come out of the closet and kill the people. And we're not going to get into politics. But Cliff is 100% right. It's the law-abiding citizens who are not out here committing these heinous crimes. So I agree with you 100%. When the detective takes you through the crime scene,
Yep.
what is the first thing that goes, because I know you still remember,
Yep.
what is the first thing that goes through your mind?
Well, as I walk down the hallway, the classrooms on the left were the classrooms that the children and the educators were killed in. Two of the educators were killed in the hallway when they came out of a meeting. The principal and the school psychologist, they were the first two killed at the school. Excuse me. As I walk down the hallway and he's explaining to me the dynamics of how it happened, shot through the door, which way he came, I'm looking around in disbelief, truly disbelief, because it's something that you've never encountered in your life unless you've been to a scene like this. So I'm walking down, and on the right side was all classrooms again, and looking in the classrooms, everything was pristine. The desks were perfect. The little lunch boxes were on the ground. They had paper out, just like a normal classroom would be, but it looked like time had stopped, and they just removed the children and put them someplace. So it looked like a almost, to me, again, I'm thinking about it now, you couldn't believe that one side of the hallway could be this mass chaos and terrible that you still to this day, it's ingrained in my mind, to the other side, which was just pristine and nothing there, nothing wrong with it. It was perfect. So that was one of the things that resonates with me to this day.
Any reason why he targeted one side and didn't fluctuate back?
That's a great question, Bob. When I do my, I'm fortunate enough to do active shooter training in the county that I work in, and people ask me the same question, and we have no idea. The suspect is dead. Suspect is dead.
Right.
The school principal, psychologists were both unfortunately killed, and he killed mom. So there were a lot of unanswered questions about it. Now the case, a lot of the stuff the judge has sealed, so there's a lot of stuff that we're not allowed to talk about, photos that you can't see, and stuff like that. But to me, it was, I still can't comprehend what would go through this person's mind that he would want to hurt young children. These are first graders, 7-year-old little kids that were there. A lot of people don't know this, but as the shooter was shooting into the classrooms, shooting the children and the paraprofessionals, the teachers aides in these classrooms, that there were 9 kids that survived. A couple of the kids had said run, and they actually ran right by the shooter as the shooter was in there shooting in their classroom. So heroic little children. You got a 6-year-old that's able to run by when something's going on, and then him and 9 other classmates were able to live through that. That's something amazing, absolutely amazing.
Because he was fixated on
something else, and yes,
allowed the children.
Yes.
Well, he didn't allow shit, but because he was so fixated.
One of the worst things I think I remember most, Bob, is, and I hate to get into gory stuff, but in classroom number 10, the teacher had tried to hide some of the kids in the bathroom. Each class had a bathroom, and when I looked inside there, the kids were removed from there at that time. When I'm looking inside there, and the rounds were so fierce that they went, and there was tile on the wall that was shattered. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking about my children at the time were a little bit older than that, but I mean, innocence just taken away from these children, and the classmates will never, obviously they'll live with this for the rest of their life. And looking at that, and I'm just what could go through somebody's mind to do that to these kids, and I'm looking at this the damage to the wall after that. So these obviously the missing or maybe going through or whatever. I don't want to get in graphic, but it just, that resonates with me all the time. It really does. It really does. And then sometimes I have dreams about it, and I'm not getting into the PTSD part of it, but you have dreams about what you saw and walking through that crime scene, and it was surreal. It was like almost like it wasn't real to me. It was looking like, wow, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Well, first off, I commend you for pushing forward and moving forward and continuing in law enforcement. I know some of the officers at the whole shooting had to retire after that, so I commend you for that. What we do have as law enforcement officers that have been through traumatic events is we decompartmentalize everything and we lock everything inside, and we're like, it's locked inside and it's gone. Unfortunately, it rears its ugly head every once in a while. You can't keep that shit, for my brothers and sisters out here, you can't keep that shit locked inside. It's going to do damage physically and mentally, and 4 marriages later, and we can all sit here and attest. The biggest joke amongst cops is, hey, how many marriages you got? Oh, that's it? You've only been married 3 times? So things do take its toll. So from the time of the beginning of the incident to the time the incident was secured, processed, the temporary morgue set up, approximately how long?
Well, from the time
how long were you on scene?
I was on scene that first initial the evening after. So that's there. I got relieved a 12-hour shift and headed out. But that scene there was live for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks of processing, because again, everything has to be processed. And I got to give Connecticut their kudos, because they did a great job. The colonel at the time, Colonel Danny Stebbins, did a great job with assigning, like I said, troopers and detectives together, assigning people to the family. And these troopers that were assigned to the families still have relationships with the families to this day.
Oh, that's amazing.
One of the things that were brought up, and I just wanted to reiterate this, is that during this time, you have 26 people from a community that have passed in a terrible way. So you have all these funerals going on. There were literally hearses going one way, stopped at a light, and another procession go by them. So the detectives and the officers that had something to do with all this, or had to deal with that again. So the emotional toll that it took on the guys was terrible. Connecticut still has to this day. It's called STOPS, State Troopers Offer Peer Support. So our peer support team was there to help out, and again, to talk to everybody. But Bob, you've been to terrible situations. A lot of times, you're not ready to talk right away. You like you said, you internalize it. You're not ready. It takes time for that to process, and everybody processes a little different. I remember going home that night, and I'm on the sitting in the living room, and I'm watching TV, and I'm stuck to the news to hear more, because I wanted to hear more what was going on. And I just came from there, and my wife walked in the room at the time, and she shuts the TV off and says, "We're not watching this anymore. We're not watching it." She goes, "You're too close to this. You're not watching anymore." And I looked at her, tears in my eyes, and I'm like, I need to have an answer. I needed to know what was going on. And she said,
No, absolutely.
nobody knows this, and I'm going to share this with you. That night, after that first night there, and I'm driving home early in the morning, we're at the command post, and they're making decisions on what was happening for the day and stuff, and dealing with victims' families. But I'm driving home, and it was like all the adrenaline out of my body come out, and you're really tired. So I literally had to stop at the side of the road. I remember being on this main highway, I-84, that goes across Connecticut, leaving the Newtown area. And I stopped on the side of the road in my police vehicle, and I sat there and I sobbed. I was just crying. I was like, all these emotions came to me at one time. And nobody knows, I've never talked about this before, but all these emotions came to me at one time, and I'm just like trying to grasp this and understand it. And I regained myself after a little while and was able to drive home and stuff like that. But I think that we as police officers and first responders alike that deal with this stuff, we internalize everything like you're saying, and then at a point it does come out. It's like stuffing everything down in a garbage can, and then all of a sudden the lid pops off, and that's what you happen. And I appreciate everybody in the country that does this job and does our job and have done that, and have, like yourself, graduated through the retirement. I retired once. I'm still doing it again. But you have to understand that it definitely takes a toll on you and your families also.
Absolutely.
And your families also. I hope your audience can understand that this is being here tonight. I appreciate that. And I want to talk to them about this, but it's very difficult.
Oh, I know
Very
it
difficult.
is. I know it is. And one thing that, when Mike and I first started, and Mike comes at it from a cigar end, and we were bullshitting before we got started with the podcast. I said, if we do something, I want to make it real. I speak really real. One of the last episodes I did, I apologized to my older children's mother, who finally had to come to grips and tell my kids, basically your dad working undercover in Miami all those years and shit, and not being home was a piece of shit. And it took a lot for me to, and I told my kids, I called them after the podcast and said, look, just watch it and please don't judge. You weren't there, type deal. But you're right. Every once in a while, you got to do a fucking self purge.
Yes.
And get it out. But
Yep.
it's not every day you can watch a podcast and actually see people who were in the trenches in some of the most heinous crimes that actually are history now. And remember what I always say on the shows: history could be bad, it could be good. It's still history. This is a very, very dark period in American history, unfortunately. Cliff just happened to be right there while history was being made. The dark history, unfortunately. I think that not only your initial walking in and getting bombarded with visuals that you've never seen before, I don't know how I would deal with looking at all of the children in a makeshift morgue and seeing these children having to be there without being transported. Am I correct?
Yes. And the agency and the obviously the medical examiner's office, the state's attorney's office, they're all there to assist. And
Right.
there's a seen the process. Obviously, it's different from if the suspect was still alive and all that stuff. They process it just as normally as they would when you were commander. You got to treat everything like it's the crime scene as it is. But there were so many people to identify and to make sure they were who they were. If you people have researched it and looked at the Newtown or the elementary school, Sandy Hook Elementary School was down a long road about a quarter mile off the roadway, and at the beginning of that roadway there's a volunteer fire department right there. So we use that as our command post or makeshift meeting area. They would feed us in the mornings and stuff like that, so we'd have food there. But that's where all the parents were waiting for relocation for the children. So and I was not there during the letting the parents know. I wasn't part of that, so I can't speak directly on that. But can you imagine being a parent watching everybody else get released and your child is not there with you, and you know that they're going to give this information to you? I can't imagine that. I just can't imagine that. And I had troopers that work for me and troopers that I know that were part of that and that notification. And they, to this day, it resonates with them terribly. I have one of my close friends, one of my academy classmates, was one of the first responders in the door while it was going on, and he, to this day, has a lot of issues. He took some time off from work. I'm surprised he was able to come back, but a strong guy, a great guy. He actually got really involved in the Special Olympics and did a lot with them. And then I had another person that worked for me, friend of mine, that was there initially, helped try to carry some of the kids out that they thought we could save. He went through a terrible divorce. He ended up having to leave the job because of drinking issues and stuff. He was able to retire, thankfully. And then he went to another agency and did some things. And when COVID first started, he ended up getting the disease or getting the sick, and he had passed away. But I believe that all that occurred because of that incident. Because he was, I got to tell you, he was a trooper's trooper. I know people say that, but this kid was dedicated to the job, really dedicated to the job. Not that everybody wasn't, but he was dedicated to the job. And for him to take that downward spiral, we missed something. And we missed something. I promise you, there must have been signs that he was hurt and needed help. But unfortunately, we react to what's going on and not to the reason why it's going on.
And our fans and audience has heard me speak before and use the term, well, he was a cop's cop. And you can't get it across to a lot of people unless
you've been there. Absolutely.
And I think one of our biggest downfalls as well is we go through shit, but I don't want to show you that I got a weakness.
Absolutely.
That I can't handle.
It's that stigma. We need to change that stigma, Bob.
I agree.
And I love this saying. It's okay not to be okay. And for your audience, some of you, if you're first responders or in law enforcement, it's okay not to be okay. And we need to change that, the way people are thinking. Like I said, they talk about military PTSD. The military goes out and fights for 6-8 months to a year. They're in the thing, and then they're taken out of it. Cops are there for 20, 25, 30 years doing the same thing. It takes a toll on you. And like I said, it's that accumulative incidents that every time they turn around, they go into something terrible. And you don't have a chance to process it. There's something else going on.
Right.
And so you're dealing with every all that stuff and piling it down.
I always use the term, I'm jaded. I'm jaded because when I started, I was 19. Too young to be a fucking cop, but in the state of Florida, 19. And you think about 32 years later, dealing with, I'm not saying everybody out here, there's more good than bad. I'm not saying that. I can tell you that I dealt with the shit for 32 years because that was my job. It wasn't to go out and shake hands and hand out hot dogs, and that wasn't my job for 32 years. So if that doesn't take a toll, and then go into situations like deadly force, unfortunately, I've been involved in a few. It does. Mine was, I was 22. So it starts taking its toll, and you just keep putting in. But
That chip off that rock.
chip,
just
yep.
like I was saying,
But
just that
you're.
chip.
I mean, you were right. You said it's okay not to be okay. Unfortunately, because of our culture, it's not.
No, right?
Now things are changing. Like
Yes.
men like you who are advocates now for trying to make that change and trying to get that stigma away from us and helping our fellow brothers and sisters. But in the day,
Absolutely.
it was
Show weakness.
oh, and I'll tell you and then we're gonna get right back into Sandy Hook. But it's just important when we're talking about mental health. After my deadly force incident, 1983, I was told to go home, take a shower. It's going to be a long fucking night. Come back, put on a new uniform, and I went to work. There was nothing. I didn't even have time to digest what happened or to think about it, except for the drive home to take a shower and get changed and come back. That was it. So in the day, there was no
mental health counseling.
you're gonna go to a counselor. You're gonna do. There was nothing.
No,
there you go. Come back to work, man. We need you at work. It's a busy goddamn night. So I applaud you for being an advocate for us. I wish in a way that they had that early on in our careers.
I do too.
But you're seeing a lot more of it now. It's a new breed, a new generation of cops. I say it all the time. But at the end of the day, we're still tasked with the same friggin' mission. I don't care if you're 19 or if you're 60, still on the job, we're still tasked with the same thing. So now, because times have changed. So on homicide scenes, and it's different. I don't know how many gangbanger homicides and multiple homicides you went to, and you get there and you go, okay, so different.
And a lot of times the person
absolutely
that you've been dealing with that person on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
Now that there's an incident that causes them to die,
absolutely.
and then and I hate to say this, you become jaded. You really do.
Absolutely.
You become jaded.
When you guys were on scene, did you have the big black petitions that are used now to secure? I know you said they had boarding up on the windows and shit,
Mm-hmm.
but
all the more, and I know get what you're saying. We boarded up the windows. The scene was not blocked off at anything. They didn't do that because you could. Once you walked in the classroom, you took that left and down the hallway.
Civilians weren't going in there.
Right,
but once in transport, did you have it? Was it secured where people couldn't see the transport of the children?
Yes.
That's what I was asking.
The Army Corps of Engineers come up and they built this big green tent. Huge pop-up tent, and that's what we use. It was right near the door, so there was no witnessing of anything going on, and that was a nice thing about that.
Basically, like 9/11.
The medical examiner, Dr. Carver was his name at the time, really facilitated things very well. He handled that situation very well, as best that you can. You're dealing with 20 little kids and 6 educators that were killed here. You got 26 people, not including the suspect and his mother.
Right.
So you're dealing with that. Now we had several scenes. Connecticut's broke up in 3 districts. You get Western District, which is where the crime actually committed. You got Central District, which is where Hartford, Connecticut is, all the main stuff. And then you got Eastern District, where I come from. So they have major crime units that come out with the big vans and stuff like that. Right. So we needed all 3 of those places to do it. So Western District, where the crime occurred, took care of the bodies, processing the bodies, identifying the bodies, and all that stuff. Central District took care of processing that scene there, the school itself. And then Eastern District, which was my district, processed the house where he had killed his mom. So that was another thing. I got to read text messages from the mother to her boyfriend or friends at the time, saying that her son was being very distant, and it was almost like a recluse, not having anything to do with it. Some people that know this, they don't know this, but he lived. Connecticut has basements down below the house, very affluent house. But he lived down there, and he had taken black plastic bags and put them over the windows and made it somewhat like a dungeon. And he didn't have a lot of outside contact, whether it was on the video games he was playing or via internet, like emailing or something like that. He didn't have a lot of contacts, didn't have any friends.
But he didn't reach out to anybody. She didn't reach out to nobody, right?
No, she did not reach out to anybody. No, she had told people that she was concerned, but again, it was one of those things. There was a check in the house that we had found. Our detectives when they processed it, and then the check in the memo said, for him to buy another weapon for Christmas because this was 2 weeks before Christmas.
She was facilitating, right? The range and the weapons.
Yes, and I'm not sticking up for the lady. I've never met her. I don't know anything about her. But divorced parents and us, you and I know that we try to overcompensate for the other not being there. So I believe in my heart of hearts, because I don't know, that she maybe tried to keep her son happy. He loved to go shooting. They would do that together. It was something they could do together. That's why there was so many weapons. I'm talking hundreds of rounds of ammunition found on him, but we found hundreds more at the residence there. If the downstairs in his room, and they had a makeshift locker. It was the key type small locker. You open it up, and there's hundreds of rounds in there too. I mean, just a lot of ammunition, a lot of stuff going on. For a young person, I agree with you. Take your kids out and you show them stuff, so they're not curious about it. If you're an avid firearms person, teach them the right way. I agree with all that. But there was more to this under the mental health part of it, and I believe in my heart of hearts that there was some red flags going up. Red flags that we found after the fact, but there had to be red flags to the mother as a parent that we missed. And those are the things that are concerning me.
Right. That's what you live with.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we always want to go back and say, coulda, woulda, shoulda. This should have happened, but we can't turn back time. We can't go back and fix the wrongs. We can move forward, but can't fix the wrongs. How long were the children in the makeshift before they were actually?
They processed as quick as possible. So as soon as they were done, funeral homes got involved, because once they were released from the medical examiner, funeral homes got involved.
Did the ME do the processing and autopsy at the makeshift, or they were all taken to?
No, they were all,
facilities?
Everything was done there, and then
Everything was done there.
They transferred it out.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So it was.
Oh my God!
Exactly. I didn't go in the tent. I didn't have.
How many MEs?
Him and Dr. Carver and his staff. There was multiple people from the staff, and I believe they brought some more people in.
And 22 victims.
No, 26 altogether.
26 altogether.
26 at the scene there. 20 first graders and 6 educators.
So he processed 26.
26 altogether there, and then obviously the suspect had to be processed, and the mother at the other scene, because she was found at home in bed. We're talking about how the scene and stuff, and I want to let your audience know that it was a very chaotic situation. It was very fluent. Things were changing drastically. As running the command post there, I was very fortunate. I had some master sergeants and sergeants there that I was able to work well with them, and they were familiar with what was going on too, and able to facilitate a lot of stuff. Because again, not only are you handling the scene to make sure the detectives have what they need, you're paying attention to dealing with media showing up and the media was relentless. Paul Vance was our PIO at the time, Lieutenant Paul Vance, amazing guy. He actually lives in Florida now. And Paul, if you're listening to something like this, we love you and thank you for what you did.
Thank you, Paul.
But he was the one that everybody that was watching TV was watching him, the Connecticut trooper that was up there explaining everything.
I remember the face. Yeah.
He not only did he did nationally, it was internationally, because you had international. So Paul did a phenomenal job of that, keeping himself composed, because again, this is a terrible situation. And Paul was there every single day. I didn't have to be there every single day, but he had to be there every single day dealing with this. And Paul did a great job. But Connecticut State Police, I want to say that they stepped up and did the best thing they could. Newtown Police Department, obviously a smaller police department. I feel bad for the officers there that had to be initial responders
who probably knew some of the kids, and their kids knew them, and
absolutely, and some of the troopers that responded had kids that went to the school. So you're responding to a school that you know your child's there, and this is going on. It's and I back into this with the state police did the best that they could on handling this the way they did. I mean, the stops program, they assigned troopers with the families, as I said, that follow up, 2 detectives at a time, not one by themselves, to watch each other and do that. So I have to commend them. And this was, a while ago. This is 2012. So we hadn't had a lot of this. Never happened in Connecticut. And everybody goes around, oh, it can't happen here, it can't happen here. ladies and gentlemen out in your audience, I'm telling you, it's not a point of if it will happen. It's about when it will happen. So you have to prepare yourself. You need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to be aware of what's going on. You need to prepare yourself. Ask yourself that question. What if? What if this would have happened? What would I do? Do you know where the exits are? Do you know have a code word with your family to say, listen, I feel uncomfortable about something. You give them a code word and they all get up and leave. So there's not that, tense situation. There's so many things you can do out there now to keep your family safe, but still have a normal life.
Absolutely. My kids are grown, but it's if they go on a trip or they're going somewhere, they have to call me and tell me where they're at. I'll go one better. So my little one is 23, graduated from UF, which, I had that panic that she was up there because I did handle the Rollins serial killer up there on the task force, years before she went to school, but still. And I could pick up my phone and she's still on my locator. And she's 23 years old, and my two older ones are like, Dad, when are you going to stop? You're so overprotective and overbearing. It's because you feel that if, God forbid, something happens to a family member and you're like, I should have been there, I could have intervened. And we all know they're grown kids and you can't intervene and be there all the time, but it's because of how we're conditioned. That's how we feel.
I don't want to get into telling war stories, but my grandfather passed away at a younger age in his early 60s. My grandmother was by herself for a long period of time. An Italian, came from the old country, sweetheart of a lady, believed in marriage forever. But she had made a friend of hers that he ended up living with her, and they would be cohabitating together. Well, her friend of hers went to an area in Connecticut, a park or something that was there. He got in some type of altercation. He was stabbed with a screwdriver, and he was dead. We were looking for him for days. I get a call. I'm a road trooper on the road. I get a call from our major crime detectives. Still remember this, and said, listen, we found so-and-so and they're deceased. We need to go notify your grandmother because that's where he lived and stuff. So I had to be with them when they notified my grandmother of the person who I know, we've had holidays and stuff together, that was deceased. Well, in Connecticut, you have to have a positive idea of the person.
Right.
So at the ME's office, I had to drive up to the ME's office because my grandmother couldn't do it, and I had to do the positive identification of the person. So in my life, not only have I dealt with homicides and unfortunately police officers that were killed, things of that nature, but now I'm dealing with my grandmother, who I love dearly, and someone that was very important to her now is dead based on a homicide that somebody killed him, and I'm dealing with that too. So understand, if this stuff touches a family member of yours, if the audience can relate to this stuff there, that again, I go back to, it's okay not to be okay. But seek the counseling, seek the people that you talk to. For me, talking about this stuff helps. It absolutely helps. You and I have had conversations all the time, many conversations, and that does help. Absolutely does help. But you still have those nights where you're sitting there and you're thinking about it, and it just pops in your head, and you don't know why it pops in your head. It's just one of those things. And the things that we've seen over the years, like I said, 37 years into this now, I'm like, wow, thinking about that. But I'm able, on a positive note, because I run the PTSD program, to help as many people as I can. And it is working. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, it is working. The new system that we are putting in place is working. The younger officers are coming out for help. I had one call me today that is going through a bad divorce. And, he says, you were my first phone call. And talk to that person, make to that person's okay. And again, just doing that buddy check, that peer-to-peer thing works really good. Just pick up the phone and asking somebody, hey, are you okay? Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. If they're not okay, there's things that, and they're not going to lose their job. No. They're not going to lose their job.
No. I just want to go back because I think one thing after the fact of Sandy Hook that just burns my, man, it gets stuck. That piece of shit who said that was staged and never happened.
Well,
I mean, Jesus Christ. That's like saying the Holocaust never happened.
And I feel bad for the parents. And if anybody out there has friends of the victims of the children,
and I'm not going to mention his name.
But no, I'm not mentioning his name.
It.
Yeah, he's not. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. I won't give him the notoriety.
No,
notoriety.
Absolutely
not. But if your audience knows anybody that their family was a victim or affected by that, my condolences. I'm sorry. I know it's been several years. You know, this happened in 2012. Been several years. That date, December 12th. I mean, December 14th, 2012. It'll ring in my head forever. The understand that
He was a prominent reporter,
absolutely, absolutely. This person,
national news.
he's spitting in the face of these families that lost these children, these innocent little people. It's not like, and not that gang violence is right or wrong, but these are people that know what they're doing.
This is pure innocence.
Yes, this is pure innocence. Pure evil did this to them. I mean, I can't think of a more evil person that would do this to children. So I'm sorry to the parents out there that this person said that it was fake and it was all done, and saying all these things that it's just terrible.
Propping and clipping videos and saying that they were actors in different
exactly.
Now this is an individual that people watched continuously on his podcast and on TV. And if you don't think that somebody can influence others, because people believe what this asshole was spewing,
unfortunately saying,
and there is a place in hell for him, and I only hope that it was his time that he meets that individual in hell. Maybe he could shake the hand of the suspect in hell, because that's exactly where he belongs. Because you got to blame him as much as you blame that suspect.
And to your audience that may have heard his podcast and started to believe that it wasn't true, this was a stage, I was there. I walked that scene. It's something that I'll remember to the day I die. I wish I never seen it. I wish I wasn't there. But it was not fake. It was not staged. It was one of the most real situations that I've ever seen in my 37 years of doing this. And I'm sorry again to the families and stuff that went through that, to the officers and paramedics and firefighters that had to go through that. Because again, we forget about them too, and they're out there dealing with that too.
Absolutely.
The medical staff that was there, waiting for people to come out so they could treat them, and that never happened. The amazing people that showed up and did what they need to do, regardless of the circumstances. But that piece of shit, as you said, saying those things that didn't happen, it's wrong. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Well, I'm a believer. Because my faith that he'll burn, and I hope he finds a nice seat in hell.
Karma's a bitch.
Karma definitely is a bitch.
Yep.
I don't know how much more I could thank you for bringing the program forward for our brothers and sisters and helping, for you dealing with your shit. I'm always there for you.
Yes, sir.
And we do bullshit. Cliff is also one of my brothers in our law enforcement motorcycle club, which, believe it or not only do we ride and have a good time and share brotherhood, but we do a lot of this. We sit around and
it's therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute therapy. Absolute therapy.
Won't mention the club. All I can say is God bless my brothers who we ride with, who are all law enforcement and military and combat vets and have been overseas in combat, who's dealt with the same thing. The one thing that Cliff brings up is, if you look at it, doesn't matter what agency you're with, but if you do any time in law enforcement, I'm not comparing it to combat by any means, but I will compare it to being in the fight every day, not for a short period of time. Most of our brothers have been in combat tours multiple times and have been around the world in different arenas of events. But your first responders are there every day, seeing the same shit every day. We don't get to go home after a tour and say, I'm done. Thank the Lord, because when we're done with a tour, it's a night, and then you got to hope that you make it back for how many years you have with your agency, be it fire, paramedics, or law enforcement. So Thank you again. Thank
I appreciate you having
Thank
me.
you for being a brother.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That friendship goes forever. So, you know
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
What I'd like, and I think the audience would love it, is maybe after our cruise. Yes, we're going on a stupid cruise together.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
After our cruise, I'd like to do an episode on just PTSD.
Absolutely.
And
Love that. I would love
how
that.
you're handling things, and maybe have a brother or two on that have gone through things, and we can. I like to maybe do it live where people can call in. Fellow brothers, first responders, fellow brothers who served in combat, call in, and we can talk back and forth. That'd be amazing. My tech guru, besides being a cigar guru.
We use StreamYard, so we're recording right now, but we have the ability to go live.
All right. So if you guys want to see something like that, hit the like button, hit the comment button. You heard it firsthand. You're not reading about it. You didn't see it on the news. You heard it from the commander who was there. The same guy who, as we say, some people have skeletons in their closet. We have a friggin' cemetery. So him dealing with his ghosts, the ghost of, each one of those kids. And I know that he probably can close his eyes and tell you exactly what each one of those kids look like, along with the school facilitators that were there. That you don't get out of your head is the faces. You may try to block out the incident. You're not going to block out those faces. And sometimes at night they visit. And you could say that, Bobby Bacala's full of shit. That doesn't happen. Okay. I'm telling you that they visit. We've all been visited once or twice. But again, God bless to all my first responders out there. My heart goes out to you. And God bless for all the work that Cliff has done and our brothers. And I'm going to end it the way I always end it. You can either be seated at the table,
or you could be on the menu.
And you never, ever want to be on the menu. God bless to all of you. Thanks for tuning back in. We're back with a vengeance. We're going to be more hard-hitting, more subjects that make you scratch your friggin' head and say, really? And then maybe a tear or two. I'm a little choked up right now because he's opened up some shit that I've been through that I'm starting to say, oh, fuck, I remember that. So to our families, thank you for being supportive of us. Thank you for being there of us. For our kids, sorry for some of our fucking antics and some of our shit. We're human too. Every first responder is human. We fuck up like everybody else does. So our apologies on that. God bless. Please hit us up, man. Keep watching, please.
Most definitely.
Hit that share button, right?
Hit the like button,
hit the like
comments,
button,
all that good
comment.
stuff.
And we love you. Great to be back. We'll see you next Wednesday.